thinking about why are all these people scared of the sun, and not really being, being very focused at that point in the business world. I didn't have much energy left over for what is now my current domain of the woo-woo world. And
what was that again?
We live in the woo-woo world, the place where voodoo, hoodoo, and all kinds of strange things.
That's what I thought you said. It's woo-woo and getting weirder all the time. It's a very deadly world of bizarre human behavior.
Yeah, and it's like the regular world. It has, great grief and tragedy and murder and pillage and all kinds of things going on. And it's highly dramatic and sort of this rather no limitations thinking realm. Anyway, in any event, though, I started stumbling onto the fact that there were a lot more people were concerned about the sun, and this is, I think, 97 or so. And I started investigating it, and by the time I finally figured out what was going on, we got into the year 2000, and we had the solar pole flip. So I knew I was onto something serious then. And then about a year after that, I finally contacted George and said, "Hey, George, you don't know me, but I've got this weird little program, and by the way, I have a patent, so I'm not just a total loon, and that I think something really nasty is going to happen that's going to change how everybody on the whole planet lives, and it'll happen within," I think I told George 90 days, but I had my numbering system reversed, so I thought it would happen earlier in the 90 days, and of course it was actually later in the 90 days, and I woke up one morning, and there they were flying airplanes into the World Trade Center.
And you can imagine how freaked I was, because at that point I was doing a turnaround for a private college in South San Francisco. My wife and I were living on our sailboat at Oyster Point Marina. Woke up one morning, and I told some people at work, it's like, some very interesting, strange stuff about the future is happening. And people are like, yeah, right. Just go in there and run the admissions office for the college. Just stay out of our way, right? And it's like, no, you don't get it. There's going to be this huge change in life. Nothing will be the same. And yeah. George, you're a loon. You're a technoid. And just go and roll.
When were you telling them this, George?
Summer of 2001, July, August of 2001.
So you're right on the edge of it.
Yeah, right on the edge of it. And every day I would take the school was in Fremont, and so I'd come back up what we called it's either the 280 or the 260, I forget, but you come back up the backside of the peninsula there, and all the way up I'm listening to this. The NPRs and everything else I could get. And San Francisco radio is like rich. You can get damn near anything. And I'm going, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? So my wife and I wake up one morning, and it's like, holy smokes, did you see that? They just flew airplanes into these buildings. And at that point, I had told the venture capital group that was involved in the school things they did not like hearing. Along the lines of tell the truth and leave shortly thereafter. And at that point, my wife and I said, let's just go sailing for a couple of years. So we took off, and by the time we got to San Diego, the world had changed so much that it was no longer attractive for us to go sail around the world because the world was closing down on Dos Americanos.
Very true, and it is now.
And
look where it is.
Still closing.
Man, well, we're pretty soon we'll need a passport to go to the supermarket. It's getting to be about that crazy.
Or to go between states.
Yeah, well, that's not a joke either. And,
I know.
Interstate travel will require identification shortly that in the past would have been required for international travel.
Real ID, Jeff. Real
that's
ID.
It. And it's coming. Okay, back in just a couple. Glad you're along tonight, and we shall continue. Okay, we're back, and where we're going is fascinating. All right, Cliff, so you decided to take this issue and move forward with the software on your own. So tell us what you designed, what your theory was, and at what point did you meet George and decide that this was worth really pursuing
well,
together?
The 9/11 kind of feel bad. I mean, I don't mean to make light of it, but the fact that we've been able to, George and I had discussed from probably early June through July, before we'd posted anything, discussed various different ramifications and parameters of the language that I was seeing.
Right. Excuse me, but when you say, Clif, the language I was seeing, help our listeners understand.
I'll back up and give you an overview of the process.
Please.
What we do is we have software that's the brute force engine part of this, and that's the C and the Perl programs that go on out and call up web pages. They sit on servers, and they take the web pages and they basically extract the non-coding, that is to say the content language, although sometimes we pay attention to keywords as well, like the search indexes for Google or some other search engine. Anyway, we grab all these words and we shove them into a very big SQL database, and we set queries against that database that arranges the words based on some rather arbitrary emotional parameters that have been reduced to numbers, and therefore not all that accurate, but at least we're accurate enough for us to start catching some of the bigger events. So at a fundamental level, what we did was we decided that everybody's psychic, that they may not know they're psychic, but it leaks out, and it leaks out because they'll choose to use one word as opposed to another in a rather casual conversation. But just because they chose this one word, it has a tendency to betray certain psychic impressions that are affecting them at that moment.
We could call that, again, a collective unconscious precognitive kind of feedback.
I would agree. It certainly is a very good label for the entire context in which we place those words. And so people are kind of like antennas, and they vibrate all the time, and as they vibrate, it changes how they think about a certain thing, and so they may ask a question in one way and not another.
It affects their chosen vocabulary. Now, this is very interesting because, as you folks know, and most of you listening know, when we are born, we are at our psychic peak, most of us. And that, of course, is drummed out of us, repressed, suppressed, and deconstructed as best as society can, because you're not supposed to be able to see the future or see colors around people or sense things. And we don't like that because sheep aren't supposed to do that. So the point is it gets repressed. And it still manifests, and apparently it manifests in chosen vocabulary, which is very interesting. And that's what Clif's and George's software goes out looking for on the Internet, for changes in the overall configuration and nuances that words and new patterns of speech and new phrases will indicate as they show up on the landscape. It's just a fascinating thing.
It's fundamental to how we do things, though, because we actually have to understand this is where slang comes from. As you say, the repression has to come out. And we've got a friend of ours who's this astrologer who puts it rather succinctly and says energy's got to go somewhere. And that's really the case. And there's this manifestation, and we just capture it at that level.
Okay, very good. Now, your software is proprietary, although there are no secrets from those people in the black ops world, of course.
Oh, yeah, there are.
There are.
Oh, yeah.
They're not as talented as many people would give them credit for.
Even with supercomputers.
They may have a great deal more brute force, and therefore may appear to be powerful, but brute force and power are not necessarily the same thing.
Well, the human wisdom aspect, of course, is what you're talking about.
I'll give you a really
good
example.
They're also careless. Human beings are careless at every level. They make mistakes. Go ahead.
But they also have this really interesting, when someone gets schooled, they sometimes lose their education.
You bet.
When my wife and I were on our boat in San Diego in late October, first part of November in 2001, I talked to Clif at some length. We agreed on a price, and we actually proposed to the U.S. government that we use this technology commercially as an anti-terrorism weapon.
Oh?
We were caught up in the patriotic area of the time.
Well, little did you guys know back then. Yeah, well, now you do. All right.
Yeah, but we actually responded to a Department of Defense broad area announcement, and we got basically a yeah, right. And it's interesting because the technology that they've gone with is like the other end of the telescope. In other words, this technology gives you the overview of what's going to happen. And the Poindexter approach is let's build a massively correlated database of everything so we can zoom down and see if you drop your fork on Tuesday at 3:43 in the afternoon, if that means you're going to try and use a hijacked library card the following Wednesday.
I thoroughly understand what you're saying. They're missing the forest for the trees. Yeah,
exactly. And so we're in this time period now where, for a year we've been waiting for all these airplanes to be grounded, and we're now going through the grounding of the MD-80s for reasons that we don't know if it's jet fuel or wiring.
Did you see my